It's a home debut for Luke Weaver. Both starts that he's had in the major leagues have been on the road. It opened up at Wrigley Field in Chicago, and last time out was Saturday as he went against the Philadelphia Phillies. Third major league start for the first round pick in 2014. And along with Rick Horton and Jim Hayes, I'm Dan McLaughlin. 81 degrees here at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Rain is in the area. Let's hope it doesn't settle right above us. The Oakland A's are in town, and that means Coco Crisp, who is a former Cardinals minor league player of the year in 2001. Then Danny Valencia, Stephen Vogt, Chris Davis, he's had a good year, the former Milwaukee Brewer. Yonder Alonso, Ryan Healy, Marcus Semien, Max Muncy, and Ross Detweiler, who pitched at Missouri State. Luke Weaver, start number 3.
You mentioned his 2 starts, Dan. He really could have won either of them. He did not get deep in either game. I think that's something he's going to learn. In the minor leagues, he was able to get deep and not throw a lot of pitches, doesn't walk very many batters, but a lot of foul balls, a lot of deep counts in those first 2 starts. We'll see if he can control the count a little better here tonight.
Finishing up his warm-up tosses, and we take a look at Coco Crisp, hitting .237 with 11 home runs and 47 driven in this year. A very interesting final month for number 4 of the A's. He has a $13 million option that kicks in if he plays in 130 games. Remember, Billy Butler is on the 7-day DL. Josh Reddick was traded. Billy Burns. And with 3 right-handers in this series, you may see Crisp get closer to that 130 mark. And again, it's his 100th game of the year tonight. First pitch by Weaver, taken for a ball, and we are underway.
I think one of the things that has surprised me about Weaver is how electric his arm is. He's not a big guy, and he talks about being a command control pitcher, but he'll get it up there 94, 95.
The 1-0 pitch. Two balls and no strikes. I'm sure some nerves and some excitement here tonight for Luke Weaver in this home debut. The Cardinals make a habit of bringing that first round pick once the draft is concluded to bring them to St. Louis and kind of dangle that carrot out there. You could be one of these guys.
Oh yeah, we've had Colton Wong up here in the booth, and Luke Weaver, many other guys along the way. Brett Wallace even go back to that. They'll have him come up here, meet us.
Hit down the right field line and foul. 2-2.
And I remember when we met Luke Weaver, I looked at him and I thought, okay, he looks like Johnny Depp. That's one. But he also looks like he's about 15.
It still does.
Just a young looking guy, very slight in his build, but just has that power arm.
How you doing, Rick? I haven't been with you in a long time.
I'm great, Dan. How about you?
Doing great. Team is in contention. That always makes it fun to come to work.
You bet it is.
The 2-2. Struck him out. Luke Weaver in his first strikeout here at Busch Stadium.
Good balance over the rubber. Then he explodes. Bottom part of the zone, hits his spot. That's what Weaver's going to do. He's going to throw to corners. One of his sayings that he uses is that he's allergic to walks, which I think is a great statement. I mean, you're out on a limb if you make that statement, right? And then you walk a couple of guys. You
Puts a little pressure on you.
Yeah, might be called into question.
Here's Danny Valencia hitting .302. He's popped 15 home runs and driven in 44. Outfield is straight away. It's always interesting, I think, for us and for the fans to see how the teams approach playing defense on teams and players that you rarely see. Do you shift? Do you not? How much do you take away from the video, the scouting reports? One ball and 2 strikes.
So much information in this game, and you have to learn who to trust and what information you can use with the personnel that you have.
I agree with you. You look at Weaver and you see the slight build, and then you see the electric arm that he has. Fastball is pretty darn good. Here's a ground ball, positioned perfectly. Brandon Moss, the former A's, he steps on the bag. Around the Horn is presented by Dobbs. Tommy Pham is in left, Grichuk in center, and Piscotty is in right. Peralta, Jerko, Carpenter, and Moss along the infield, and Yadier Molina once again behind the plate. Stephen Vogt, .263 hitter this season, 10 home runs, and he's driven in 36.
Two-time All-Star for the A's, and he's a guy that when he was 25 years of age wanted to quit. Said, I'm in Double-A, I'm 25, I'm not going anywhere. Came home and told his wife that he was quitting, and she said, no, you're not. She talked him into it twice, into staying and playing. You're going to be a grouchy old man if you don't play this thing out, and he did. And he gives her a lot of credit for supporting him. Family, of course, too, beyond that, but his wife in particular for believing in him.
Very similar to the story of the Cardinals' Brandon Moss, who almost gave up the game. And it was his wife that convinced him to stick with it with the A's. Popped up left side and out of play. Moss was ready to quit. Bob Guerin said, we're going to give you a crack. Come on up to the big leagues and don't worry about the results of the strikeouts or the average. You're going to play every day. And boys, it paid off.
I think that's the same message that he has brought to Randall Grichuk. Just do damage, things will work out. Bob Melvin, by the way, one of the game's good managers, very smart guy. He's taken the A's to the playoffs a couple of times, and good big league career as a catcher. A lot of catchers as managers these days.
The 2-2 struck him out. 2 strikeouts in the top of the first for Luke Weaver. No score from Busch Stadium. Left-hander, grew up here. His family, huge Cardinal fans. He grew up a Cardinal fan as well, and now pitching at Busch Stadium against St. Louis. Matt Carpenter will lead it off, followed by Jed Jerko and Brandon Moss. Moss now up to 25 home runs. Then Stephen Piscotty, Yadier Molina, Johnny Peralta, Randall Grichuk swinging a hot bat, Tommy Pham, and the pitcher batting ninth, Luke Weaver.
Mentioned Detweiler from the St. Louis area. He went to Wentzville Holt and then went on to Missouri State to pitch there collegiately, and he's bounced around. He's been around the big leagues for a while. 30 years of age. He's started twice, Dan, against the Cardinals. He's 0-2. One of those starts not bad. The other one, he got beat around a little bit.
Originally drafted by the Nationals, first round back in 2007. He's played with Texas, Atlanta, and Cleveland as well. One ball, one strike on Carpenter. Moved back to the top spot in the lineup. And the first game back, he hits a home run. Yesterday, hit one to the wall and was robbed. Sends a fly ball into shallow center. Coco crisp, late break, and it drops in for a base hit. Did not get a very good read. Around the Horn is presented by Dobbs. Chris Davis is in left. Crisp in center. Valencia in right. Healy and Semien on the left side of the infield. Muncy and Alonso on the right side, and Stephen Vogt is behind the plate. Around the Horn presented by Dobbs. Put the shift on here for Jed Jerko. Calling the balls and strikes tonight, the crew chief, fielding Colbreth. Chris Segal is at first, C.B. Buckner at second, Jim Reynolds down at third.
Hard to keep Jerko out of the lineup right now, isn't it?
No question about it. The way he's swinging the bat. I think from the Cardinals' perspective, you start to wonder about guys that get healthy. How does Mike Matheny keep everybody sharp? a good problem to have, though.
It is. Jerko's been very sharp in the second half of the season, and what I've noticed about him in particular is Jerko's ability to have good at-bats against hard throwers and guys that have great stuff. He's just not really overpowered by anybody.
Very quick hands.
Quick hands. He turns on the ball that's in. Teams will at times try to pitch him in, but his hands are so quick, don't make a mistake in there.
2 balls and 1 strike on Jerko. He's at shortstop tonight. Jerko with a fly ball into right center. Crisp is back. 2-0 Cardinals. Home run number 22. This guy is something else.
A familiar trip for Jed Jerko to Carlos Martinez because of this familiar swing. Takes it to straightaway center field. A pitch down and in. I don't believe it was meant to be there. And Jerko is absolutely flexing his muscles here in the second half.
Rick, that's now 15 consecutive games of the home run for the Cardinals. 2 shy of their season high, 17 straight. And they have spread the wealth. 10 different Cardinals have homered during this stretch. 10 different. Unbelievable. Jed Jerko and Brandon Moss and what they have meant to this club this year. Speaking of home runs, Brandon Moss, his first one last night down the right field line off the foul pole. That was number 24. Number 25 for good measure. This offense can strike at any moment.
Been impressed by the way he hits lefties too, especially in the second half. Seems more and more comfortable. Not a lot of off-balance swings for Moss. 25 home runs, 60 RBIs. Big time season for him.
The 1-2, and he strikes out. The first out here in the bottom of the first. And it brings in Stephen Piscotty. So Jed Jerko now with 22 home runs, and he has driven in 47. And remember, there were times in the first half of the season he would go long stretches and wouldn't play.
Fair to say that Jerko was brought here to make the Cardinal bench stronger. Done a lot more than that.
Popped up to the right side. Alonso is over and makes the catch. On a much different level in terms of, you know, not seeing the power, but still having a great second half. The man that's coming to the plate, Yadier Molina.
Been so healthy, so durable, night after night. Yadi's behind the plate.
Average up to 289. He's coming off a series in those 3 games against the Mets in which he had 7 hits.
Ray Fosse, one of the broadcasters for the A's, and I were chatting about Yadi. And he said, how's he catching? How's he throwing? And I said, he's doing great with that. And I said, let me tell you about his hitting. He said, I don't care about hitting. He said, I'm an old school catcher, and anything that's hitting is a plus. If Yadi's doing the job defensively and handling a pitching staff, that's all that really matters.
On the inside corner, and he strikes out. So 2 strikeouts in the inning for Detweiler. He allowed a blue base hit by Carpenter, and then it was Jed Jerko time. 22nd home run this year. 2-0 St. Louis. Buddies, and that of course is Brandon Moss. Jimmy.
Yeah, well, Matt Carpenter started the last couple of games at first base. Tonight Brandon Moss is at first base. When Moss went to get his glove earlier tonight, it wasn't there. It was still in Carpenter's locker. Carpenter doesn't have his own first baseman's glove, so he uses Brandon's. Moss told me, we're a family, so I don't mind sharing, but you think he'd be considerate enough to put it back. We had Moss on the pregame show. He had a pretty good theory on why the Cardinals are hitting so many homers this year, but had very few last year. He told me last year runs were so hard to come by. You didn't see guys go up there with an approach to drive the ball. It was more of a take a base hit, manufacture a run, and try to get 3 because our pitching staff is only going to give up 2. This year, he said, guys realize what they're capable of doing. Dan, I think that's a pretty good theory.
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. As Chris Davis pops it foul. Last year, the Cardinals collectively the best ERA since 1968.
So not only what they're capable of doing, but what they've needed to do to win games. This is a team that's been carried and driven by their offense, not their starting pitching this season. It's really been an odd season for the Cardinals starters. There's some injuries part of that and other things, but the bats have been critically important.
Chris Davis swinging a hot bat last 6 games, 3 home runs, and he's 9 for his last 23. We saw him come on after the injury to Ryan Braun, then the suspension to Ryan Braun in Milwaukee, and got a chance to play every day. He was traded to Oakland in the offseason, and he's made the most of it.
Dan, I want to go back to something Jim said there. You do a lot of charity work in St. Louis. You are a charitable guy. You think you can get something together to raise some money to get Matt Carpenter his own first baseman's mitt?
We're going to have to do that, I think. We're going to have to do it.
I kind of feel bad for him.
I'm not sure I'd go that far, but I'm a little surprised he is using the glove of Brandon Moss. So from the gloves to the keys to the game.
Good segue, Dan. And one of the keys is something that you've already mentioned, and that has to do with scouting a team that you've not seen a lot. I think if the Cardinals can out-scout the A's, and I mean the shifts, tendencies, how you pitch somebody, where you put the outfielders, what outfielders you run on, all of those things you have to do because you've not seen the other team much.
Into deep right center, Alonso, and it's gone. Yonder Alonso with home run number 7. And the A's get on the board to make it a 2-1 St. Louis lead.
Cardinals have seen Alonso in the National League, and that pitch center cut. Middle of the zone, up, and he jumped on it.
Alonso needed that. He had been 4 for his last 32. There's Ryan Healy, who has an 11-game hitting streak on the line.
Second key that we did not discuss was the right-handed power potential in the Cardinal lineup against left-handed starter Detweiler, and that's already happened today with Jerko's home run. But Jerko, Piscotty, Molina, Grichuk, Peralta all become important from the right side facing a guy like Detweiler.
Healy overall at 282, 6 home runs, and he's driven in 17. The shift is on, and a 1-1 is in the dirt. Well, for Luke Weaver, his first start against the Cubs, 2 runs in 4 innings of work, and then 3 runs in 5 innings in his last start. That was against the Phillies on Saturday night. Here's a 2-1. Looks to me that Weaver is pitching more in tonight, especially against the right-handed batters.
Well, doesn't matter who you are, what kind of stuff you are, you're going to have to pitch inside at some point at this level.
This pitch sets up away, and the previous pitch inside. Now you get the ground ball. That's pitching. Follow Cardinals baseball with the MLB.com at-bat app. Stay up to the moment at any moment. Game day, live game, video highlights, StatCast, news, and more. Download MLB.com at bat. It's the #1 app for live baseball on your phone or tablet. Marcus Semien, 23 home runs. He's driven in 55.
On Monday, his wife delivered Isaiah, their firstborn, so I'm sure he's giddy about that. He just came back a couple days ago after being able to be there for that birth, and he really is a good young player. He's just 25. Came up with the White Sox, but he's a player.
Rips it into left center. Extra bases. Over to cut it off. Grichuk, and Simeon sliding into second base with a 2-out double.
Not a bad breaking ball, but he was right on it. Good speed. Really not a team that runs a lot. The A's. Interesting, Dan, the A's don't walk a lot. They are next to last in baseball in walks, and this is what happened to Moneyball.
Right.
The whole Moneyball idea is really to get value players, and one of the things that they were getting value in was guys that could get on base, not necessarily guys with high averages. On base percentage, yet theirs is very, very low. Last in the American League in on base percentage. What's going on?
Interesting too, a couple of years ago they were so good, and then they went out and traded for John Lester, and they had Cespedes, and they had some very good players in their lineup, and some believe that they traded too much. It really disrupted the core of that team, eventually losing to Kansas City in the playoffs. Weaver picks up his third strikeout. Solo home run by Alonso. 2-1 midway through 2. Promotions for tickets. I would highly recommend, as you get a look at Alonso, who picked up the home run, if you're coming down to Ballpark Village for the Hall of Fame ceremonies, get a ticket, head into the Hall of Fame, and you will see the Eddie Gaedel jersey, which is hanging prominently up in the Cardinals Hall of Fame and Museum. As Peralta skies one into right, Valencia near the line and makes the catch. The jersey that was worn by then a 9-year-old bat boy by the name of Bill DeWitt. It's an incredible story, and Bill has told me they had the jersey, which was worn by Eddie Gaedel, now commonly referred to as Little People. It was between a doubleheader. He hopped out of a cake. They were playing Detroit. Hops out of a cake. Bill Veeck, this is his idea to entertain the fans, says, I'm going to have Eddie Gaedel pinch hit. He walked on 4 pitches, gets to first base, and then he is pinch run for. But the jersey, they didn't have anything that would fit, so they had to find a bat boy, and that bat boy was that man right there, Bill DeWitt. And the jersey, by the way, was in their family and transferred from family member to family member with no idea how valuable it was. They told me they would wear it for Halloween sometimes.
Wow.
You know, just going out to wear something different. And now it's hanging over in the Cardinals Hall of Fame and Museum.
Classic Bill Veeck, too. He was an innovator and a showman and did a lot of interesting things, different things. He wasn't afraid to try it. In fact, the pinch runner you mentioned, Jim Delsing, was the pinch runner, who was a St. Louisan and good friend. The late Jim Delsing, his son Jay, a professional golfer, and another good friend of ours, Dan, and really just a magical moment. I believe they made that illegal the next day, or there was some announcement by the commissioner of baseball that we cannot continue that.
That's lined into right, backing up Valencia, and makes the catch, and what a play it was on the track. That ball just carried off the bat of Randal Grichuk. We mentioned so much about how the ball jumps off the bat of Grichuk. I think that's a good example where you have a major league outfielder that may have been fooled a little bit on how well he hit it.
It was an easy swing. I think that's why he was fooled. And there's Valencia at the beginning of the warning track. That's a nice play. Good recovery. Valencia, by the way, has been in the news for a couple of reasons. There were talks about him maybe being traded at the deadline. There were teams interested in Valencia, and the other story, which we won't belabor but should mention, is he and his teammate Billy Butler had a, we'll call it a disagreement in the clubhouse that ended up into something serious enough for Billy Butler to have to go on the disabled list with a concussion, and they both talked about it and somewhat said we're going to get past it and move on. But certainly a disruptive part of the A's clubhouse the last week or so.
Both have said both were wrong.
Right.
Here's Tommy Pham. Here's Billy Butler, longtime designated hitter and first baseman of the Royals. 0-2 pitch, taken just a bit high.
Reading between the lines, it seems as if there was some clubhouse banter that went awry, which can happen. And you know, people talk about that being bad chemistry. You look at some of the old Oakland A's teams and the old Yankees teams, that was par for the course. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean bad chemistry if the two follow up well with it, connect, and say, look, we're brothers between the lines. That's what you do. Now, again, your people are people. You know, you and I may go at it every once in a while, but
never.
But between the lines of the booth, we're locked in.
A few years ago, I put up tape so that you wouldn't cross on my side of the booth. Do you remember that?
I do. Do I ever?
I said, this is my side, Rick. I put up tape like Les Nessman of WKRP in Cincinnati. Don't you dare come across my line.
Violated your space a few times on purpose after that.
3-2. And it's a walk to Pham. Well, one thing that we saw in his second major league start is that Luke Weaver can swing the bat a little bit.
A couple of hits off of Hellickson in that game, and hits were hard to come by in that game in Philadelphia, but he picked up a couple, and I liked he had a nice short swing. And he has 2 more hits already than the Oakland A's entire pitching staff. They're 0 for 16 with 10 strikeouts. Of course, it's interleague. They haven't been very good at that either, the A's this season.
Al Raboski has always mentioned this, and I agree with him. If you want to keep interleague in the game, why not put the DH in the National League parks in those games, and then when you go to an American League game, let those fans see a pitcher hit. And I agree, this is about the fans. Interleague play was there to drum up interest, and it has. It's been a success. Just wonder, though, if it's run its course just a little bit.
Well, what I like about Al's suggestion is that it gives fans who've dug their heels in and say no DH, and fans who've dug their heels in and said we have to have the DH. It gives them a chance to experience the other, so maybe you can find out what you really like or don't like about it and have a more informed opinion. I mean, I think people have an idea why they like it or don't, but after you experience it a bit, course of a few seasons, you may soften.
Here's an 0-2 pitch to Luke Weaver. Struck him out. 1 strikeout in the inning and 3 for Detweiler through 2. 2-1 St. Louis. The banks of the Mississippi, and a beautiful night for baseball here in St. Louis. We were just talking between innings about how it seems, and I'm not sure it's necessarily the case, it just seems this way, there has been a ton of scoring in the Cardinals games for the opposition or even by the Cardinals first and second innings.
Well, you got me thinking, Dan, which is always a scary proposition, but I've been flipping through my book here. I have to go back to July 21st. The Cardinals were hosting the Padres. The last time a Cardinal game has been scoreless through 4, which you'd think would happen often. That wouldn't be unusual. The starter gets off to a good start. He's controlling the game, a couple of base runners, you leave a few on, you go to the 5th, and then the scoring might start. But you go all the way back to Wainwright's start against Andrew Kashner. That's the last time that we had a scoreless game.
And that was when Kashner was a member of the Padres.
Correct. And I'll bet there aren't many beyond that.
1 ball and 2 strikes. Ross Detweiler. There's a strikeout, and that's number 4 for Luke Weaver. I had the privilege, by the way, to MC Adams' fantasy football draft this morning. He, along with Lance Lynn, Matt Carpenter, were part of it. Stephen Piscotty. Alex Petrangelo was there. And as they all get involved with those that donate their time and money to the cause, and I really wish fans could hear Wainwright speak to the crowd and how passionate he is with all the different kinds of charitable efforts he's a part of through Cardinals Care, through helping those that are afflicted with poverty here in St. Louis, impoverished countries that he's helped out, many areas. And I mean, when I say areas in impoverished countries, I mean hundreds of families that he's affected with clean water, and the program that he's done with that. He's done some great stuff.
Well, there's a saying, Dan, in fundraising for an organization and causes like that, that you hope that people would either go, get, or give. And Adam Wainwright does all of those three things as it relates to it. He's not just kind of doing it. He goes there, he and his wife Jenny, to see the effects, and certainly he's not afraid to ask people to be involved in it. And certainly it's part of his gifting, and really a credit to Adam Wainwright and to the Cardinals that they've helped nurture that heart that he has.
Line drive and a base hit by Coco Crisp to left field, and a 1-out base hit, and it brings in Valencia. Adam, when he was speaking about this, he was very emotional, and as I introduced him, I said there are many pro athletes that will give you money and give you a check, and then they have really no idea where the money goes, and that's what you're talking about, getting his hands dirty literally in those projects. Valencia grounded out to first. He's 0 for 1. Out to left, and the catch is made.
Mike Aldretti is now the first base coach for the Oakland A's after being their bench coach for a year. Bob Melvin has reassigned him, but longtime Cardinal coach. He began as a assistant hitting coach and then became a bench coach here in St. Louis. Always good to see Mike.
Really enjoyed being around him and his time in St. Louis.
2008 through 2014. That's a lot of years.
So 2 outs and a runner at first. That's Coco Crisp, your runner at first base, and it brings in Stephen Vogt, who struck out swinging first time up. That is one nasty helmet.
It is.
This time of year, all the pine tar and the dirt that collects on top of the helmet.
Well, Vogt's an interesting guy. I mentioned he's a 2-time All-Star, but another thing he is, he's kind of a budding entertainer. And if you want to get a little laugh, Google his impersonations of Chris Farley.
Yeah.
And he's just not afraid to kind of lay it out there. He likes to entertain, likes to have fun with this game. And, you know, why not, Dan? I think the game needs to continue to nurture the characters of the game, because it is a light game. It shouldn't be so intense and so gritty that people forget that it's a fun game. I think they play better that way, frankly.
2-0 pitch, lifted down the left field line, slicing foul and out of play. And we get it. There's a lot on the line. This is a business, a lot of money for the individuals and for the teams. But I'm not sure that we as a business of baseball sell the players enough. It's about trying to get time with them, to learn more about them, to tell the fans about them, and really sell the stars of this game too. The 2-1.
Bruce Sutter used to say that, and he would hold his thumb and his forefinger about a quarter of an inch apart, and he'd say, to play this game effectively, you have to be that far away from not caring what happens result-wise. You're just loose. You're so loose that you're just doing it. Now, it doesn't mean you're not caring, but you have to be able to relax your body and focus your mind, and whatever gets you there, gets you there.
Now with 2 strikes, the shift on Vogt. short lead at first, and backing up it's Moss. There he goes. Popped up. Long way to go for Peralta. He won't get there, and it's out of play. Nice catch made by the fan there in the front row. Three-two pitch, and he struck him out. 5 strikeouts through 3. And a night that the Cardinal fans received the Bob Gibson statue with a red jacket for the Hall of Fame. Here is Carpenter, followed by Jerko and Moss. Jed Jerko with a 2-run homer back in the first, put the Cardinals on top 2-0. And then Yonder Alonso with a solo home run, and our score is 2-1. Hall of Fame ceremonies tomorrow, and that is open to the public.
Can't wait for it to be the first chance that I've had to actually go to it. I'm going to go and just enjoy it, and every other opportunity I've had, I've been working on a pregame show, couldn't do it, but I am looking forward to being there. I think it's so fitting for the Cardinals to have this Hall of Fame component, and you do a great job running it, Danny. I'm looking forward to it.
Strikeout of Carpenter brings in Jerko, our BJC Healthcare difference maker. Jed Jerko homering just about every 10 at bats, slightly under that since the All-Star break. Some pretty good names on that list. A 2-run homer back in the first, his 22nd of the year. The shift is on here for Jerko, and the 1-0.
I wouldn't say that Jerko has a short swing. I think he has a long swing, but still has a quick bat.
Lines it.
Wow.
The catch is made by Muncy.
Knuckler. He thinks he caught it. He's not sure. There's a knuckle. That was a much tougher play than probably our crowd of close to 40,000 here might understand. That ball moved probably 5 or 6 feet over the last 10 feet of its flight, and he had to really react to make the play.
2 outs and nobody on, and there's ball 1. Moss struck out his first time up. Pitch number 40 upcoming from Detweiler. Some pretty good players the A's have had the last 2 to 3 years, no longer wearing that uniform, and this is one of them, Brandon Moss. Ouch. That's the second time he's done that in this series, or rather this homestand. Chris Conroy, assistant trainer of the St. Louis Cardinals. Tommy Pham there in the background. One of the funniest guys around.
He's great, isn't he? Takes good care of us too, not just the player.
Moss goes the other way and a base hit. Stops at first base, and a nice play by Chris Davis out in left. Holds him to a single. Arcia in the driver's seat. Ross Detweiler, highest ERA since 2015. His first start wearing this A's uniform, 8 shutout innings back on August 10th against the Orioles. Shelled though in his last 2. Gave up 6 runs in 4 innings in a loss to the White Sox last time out. Now 30 years of age, acquired from the Indians the middle of July. Stephen Piscotty now with 20 home runs. For a former self-admitted line drive hitter. Changed his swing in the minor leagues, and it has paid off in a big way. Looking at video of Mark McGwire and A-Rod, Barry Bonds getting more of a little bit of an uppercut with that swing. Trying to get the lift. Two outs and a runner at first, and Piscotty bounces it to third. Force play at second, the wide throw, but Muncy on the bag. We head to the fourth. It'll be Davis, Alonso, and Healy coming up. Cardinals. Score of 2-1 in favor of St. Louis. In the top of the fourth, Luke Weaver will face Davis, Alonso, and Healy. Chris Davis, originally drafted by Washington, 29th round, did not sign. Played college baseball at Cal State Fullerton, then became a 7th round pick in 2009 by Milwaukee.
Looks as if Davis has cut down on some of those bad streaks that he went into when he was with Milwaukee. There were times where we would face the Brewers and you'd say, hey, don't pitch to Chris Davis. He's red hot right here. And he did get 22 home runs a year with the Brewers, and that was good, but he would go stretches where he couldn't hit anything. But he's having a nice season, 82 RBIs.
Pulls it foul.
Sometimes it just clicks for a hitter. They find that the way that pitchers are getting them out, and finally you say, wait a minute. They're doing that night after night. I've got to cover that, or I've got to find ways to lay off that pitch, and I've got to find what works for me, and maybe he's just learned that next level.
Brewers added him to their 40-man roster in 2012. His rookie performance was good enough that they traded Norichika Aoki to Kansas City, then moved Ryan Braun from left to right field to create room for Davis. Inside, you can hear the home plate umpire all the way up here.
I like the mix that we've seen from Weaver. Good sinking fastball. He has a cutter. Opens up the breaking ball a little bit too with the curveball, and also has a devastating changeup.
Got him. Strikeout number 6 for Weaver. Missouri Lottery Fox tracks.
He's allergic to walks, but not to strikeouts, evidently. 6 of them, more than a strikeout an inning in his 3 starts at this level. You look at his numbers, Dan, in the minor leagues. In 38 starts in the minor leagues, 35 walks only, and 192 strikeouts. That's some kind of ratio.
It's been some kind of jump this year for Weaver to the big leagues too. Made just 1 start at Memphis and then was brought up as he dominated at Double-A in Springfield
after being hurt in spring training.
Here's the 0-1 pitch. It's an odd injury too. It had nothing to do with his arm, his pitching arm, but it put him a little bit of a setback, and then all of a sudden he burst onto the scene here in 2016. 1 ball, 1 strike on Alonso. It's a high fly ball out to right. Stephen Piscotty under it, makes the catch. 2 down. 4 in a row sent down by Weaver.
If I was an Oakland A hitter, I would sit right next to Alonso right now and say, what are you seeing? That's part of the in-game adjustment that we talk about. The hitting coach has something to do with that, but he's been very comfortable in both of his at-bats, and I don't want to ask the guy what he struck you out on. I mean, I don't want to hear bad news. I want to go to the guy that says, you know what, I see it. It's as big as a beach ball. The ball's coming out of this part of his body, or you have to adjust here, or look for this pitch, or this is what he's trying to do. Ask the guy that's had some success, not the guy that's 0 for 2.
Get the feeling too, we're watching a pitcher, Luke Weaver, that's growing quickly with confidence, not just in this start, but we saw it at times in his second start against the Phillies. Looks more comfortable out there. But everything has been down for the most part. Nothing over the middle of the plate, and a good changeup working here this evening. 2-0 the count on Ryan Healy. There's a changeup at 83 miles an hour. The 2-1. Hit up the middle and a base hit. A 2-out hit for Healy, and it brings in Marcus Semien, and that's a 12-game hitting streak for the A's third baseman.
That's the longest current streak in baseball. I was surprised to hear that. Thought somebody might have more, but
Semien doubled to left center first time up. There's strike one.
Bet you could win that on a bar bet. What major leaguer has the current hit streak, the longest hit streak currently? I bet you'd get about 100 answers before you got Ryan Healy.
0-1 pitch. Ooh, just missed. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Not afraid to throw to corners. He trusts his command. Even though he's behind in the count, he's always looking outer half, inner half.
And the 1-1 pitch from Luke Weaver. Again, that changeup. That's been a very effective pitch for him.
Sells it well, doesn't he?
He sure does. Cardinals start play a game and a half back of San Francisco in the wild card. Game and a half in front of Miami. Miami currently trailing 5-2 against San Diego, and that ball game is in the top of the 6th. Pittsburgh 2.5 back of the Cardinals. They're in the bottom of the 3rd with Milwaukee, and there's no score. The Mets, after their win last night, 3.5 back. And they're leading in the bottom of the 7th against the Phillies at Citi Field. It's 9-1. Here's a 1-2. Struck him out. 7 tonight for Luke Weaver. Five of the 7 have been caught looking. Will he not be a part of this rotation or bullpen the rest of the way? With more on that, let's check in with Jim Hayes.
Yeah, Lance threw 3 scoreless innings for AA Springfield Wednesday night in his latest rehab start. He totaled 48 pitches. He touched 94 miles an hour on the radar gun. As encouraging as that was, Lance is sticking by his assessment that pitching for the Cardinals this season is very unlikely. He told me, I'm pretty much ruling it out for now. He explained, you don't want to risk the progress you've made, and you definitely don't want to put the season in jeopardy for next year, not even knowing what you're capable of doing this season and if you can even help your team. So Dan, Lance has looked good. The chances of Lance returning this season don't, at least according to Lance at this point.
Interesting, and he is throwing the ball so well, but fully could understand going into the final year of a contract. At a personal level, making sure you're all right.
Well, I think the team would want to be sure that you're going to be able to help them too. If you're bringing somebody in that has not had a lot of innings under their belt in a long time, and you could say, yeah, we want the old Lance Lynn, but we want to make sure you're right. And you know, these are going to be meaningful games in September. And Dan, I'll pose you a follow-up question, and love to hear John Mozeliak's answer to this question too. What Cardinal? He won't answer it, but you will. What Cardinal that's currently disabled do you think has the greatest opportunity for impact in September and October? And there's a long list of guys.
That's my guy right there. That's my answer. Now there is a long list of guys and a lot of different reasons for the other individuals, but he has meant so much to this lineup. He'd certainly be in that conversation, put it that way.
Well, I think the conversation includes Aledmus Diaz for sure, and I agree with you. That'd be my answer. But Michael Wacha could make a difference. Matt Adams could make a difference. Trevor Rosenthal, Matt Holliday. The Cardinals' September call-ups are really going to be injured guys, not young AAA players who've been performing well. And you just hope that they fit in at the right place at the right time and play well.
It's a good point with all the guys that they've had, and this has been a collection of a lot of individuals that don't necessarily play every day, but a lot of parts to this team, where in years past, as Peralta grounds out, it's September call-ups and trying to get a guy maybe his feet wet in the major league level. But with a team that's going into postseason, you got to find out what you have with the guys here.
And not only that, the guys who've been hurt, you've got to find out about.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, Michael Wacha, the guys who've been here, not unhurt and hurt. So Wacha, I could envision him being a bullpen help, for example. Could happen.
There were some that talked about Michael Wacha not being able to maybe handle the workload in the bullpen because of his particular injury with his shoulder as Grichuk pulls it foul. Now, my understanding is that mindset no longer exists, that it is built up enough that if he did have to go in the bullpen and potentially pitch, let's say 3 or 4 days in a week, that might happen. Time will tell.
And you wouldn't even necessarily have him have to do that role with an expanded bullpen. If you have 14 guys in the bullpen, you can use Alex Reyes however you want. You could use Wacha however you want. You could use them long on a particular day with a starter having a short start. A lot of options for Mike Matheny if you can get healthy arms.
Do you find it interesting that Alex Reyes is in the dugout and not in the bullpen?
I do. He knows where it is, right?
It's the place beyond the wall in right field for the Cardinals. He has been, by the way, because I try not to miss a beat here, Rick, as you know.
I think you've uncovered something.
He's been hitting in batting practice with the starters.
I saw him do that today, too.
Yanked down the left field line, home run distance, but pulled foul. So,
intrigue.
He's in the dugout, hitting with the starters. We shall see. I noticed it the other day. It's been 2 or 3 days in which he's been hitting with the starters, and normally if you're a bullpen guy, for folks that don't know, that would not happen. Here's the 0-2. What adds further to that intrigue would be him sitting in the Cardinals dugout and not in the bullpen. Now that could change as this game goes on.
The place where the Cardinals need the biggest boost right now would be a solid rotation, and Reyes could possibly be an answer to that. I think Luke Weaver is showing that he could be one too.
All the injuries the Mets have had, the young rotation that they have, and the one guy they've counted on every 5th day, and he's been there, Bartolo Colon. Here's Max Muncy. A score of 2-1 St. Louis.
Dan, you went through the National League wild card and talked about where Miami is and Pittsburgh and the Mets, and you know it's going to be an interesting race in September. I'm looking forward to it. A lot of meaningful games, a lot of teams still in it. But you look at the American League wild card race, and after looking at it today, I believe there are 5 teams in the American League that are out, and the Oakland A's are one of them. And that means 10 teams still have a chance. Even the Yankees, 5.5 games out, that's doable. And you look at the Astros is doable. I mean, there are a lot of teams. There's just 5 teams.
Run.
Exactly.
Here's a 3-0. And that is a ball. So the first walk issued by Weaver. All Sunday, starting 2 hours prior to every home game. That includes this weekend. You can enjoy games, prizes, and free North Star ice cream treats while supplies last. That's in the Ford Plaza, presented by Prairie Farms. So here is Detweiler. See if he can get a bunt down. Charged by Moss, and the only play is Carpenter at the bag at first. You know, to me, Rick, with the lack of a DH for American League teams that come into a National League park, it's not necessarily for me watching the 0 for 16s with 10 strikeouts. It's whether or not some of these pitchers can get a bunt down, because that could be a difference in the game.
Well, of course, Detweiler spent a lot of time in the National League and really did that flawlessly right there. Pitch from the right side, left-handed pitcher. As we mentioned, they haven't done a lot of positive things as a staff on the offensive side. Their pitchers haven't. Part of the reason, I'm sure, why they're 5-12 in interleague games, among other reasons.
Here's Crisp, who is 1 for 2 and looks at a strike. I was looking at the same things you were looking at. We didn't discuss this, but I agree with you. 5 teams are out, with the A's being 1. But outside of that, and I included the Yankees as a part of my teams that have a chance.
Wait a minute. Were you on Over the Line? Were you on my side of the?
This is before the game.
I know, but it still matters. Don't get on my side. Don't be peeking over my shoulder while I'm prepping.
I went underneath the tape that separated us, and I went on my computer and looked at it too.
Need to get that alarm checked.
1 ball, 1 strike.
Got a camera, by the way.
Oh yeah,
watching you.
Oh yeah, I know. That's hit down the right field line, hooking foul and out of play. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Coco Crisp. I mentioned that Coco was a member of the Cardinals organization, and at Potomac at the time, minor league player of the year. Fans may forget this. He was traded for Chuck Finley. It was the year that, unfortunately, Darryl Kyle had passed away. Andy Bennis was still trying to figure out what he was going to do. And so they gave up Crisp to get Chuck Finley. And it was Finley then who taught Andy Bennis a forkball that prolonged his career. And Andy was terrific down the stretch of that year.
And Finley pitched pretty well himself and should be on that list of guys that we always talk about who have come to the Cardinals in a stretch pennant race and just really had an impact. And there's so many guys that we think of in that list. You think of Cesar Cedeno and Will Clark and Larry Walker. Those are the ones that just kind of roll off there. But I think Finley did a pretty nice job as well.
He sure did.
Not just because of himself, but the teaching that he did.
Ground ball to short. Jerko makes the play with Crisp hustling down the line.
We're talking about the wild card, and as you look in the American League, there are plenty of teams, including the Yankees. Kansas City's been playing very well of late. Houston, we just saw them. We know they're good. They're certainly have high potential, and I'm working from bottom up, but boy, you've got a number of good teams that are still competing for that wild card. Only 5 American League teams out of it. The Angels are out of it. The A's are out of it. But it is really going to be fun in September.
Here's Valencia, and he takes a ball low.
I think Toronto's the lineup I wouldn't want to pitch to. There's not an easy out in that lineup. Hitter's ballpark.
Something that we forget, and Jim had a nice report talking about Lance Lynn, more than likely would be done for the year. But there are no games in September in the minor leagues.
Right.
And so your rehab assignments are cut short. And so you could see the possibility of a lot of simulated games before an actual game here at the ballpark. Trying to get some work in, stay sharp. That may be the case for Lynn and others. 2 balls and 1 strike.
Off-speed pitches have been very good. The changeup right on the black. Again, he sells it really well. Good arm action. The ball just dies at the last minute. Now going away.
Just missed. 3-1.
One thing that's very obvious when you watch Luke Weaver work, and he has got a 1-run lead. He's trying to protect. What's very obvious is that he has a plan. He knows what he's doing. He goes in and out, changes speeds. He's thinking.
Same spot, doesn't get the call. I've noticed in this game, as opposed to the other two starts, he has shook off Yadier Molina a little bit more here tonight. And a lot of fans would say, well, you can't shake off Yadi. Well, you being a former pitcher would understand that that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I think young pitchers should shake off Yadi, and that is no disrespect for Yadi at all. I mean, I think he calls a tremendous game, but you still know yourself better than he does. And you know the moment better, the baseball that you have in your hand, the feel, the hitter's eyes. You're going to be a step ahead of him. Now, he may know the game better, and he may know the hitter's weaknesses better. In fact, he does. But he's still learning Luke Weaver. Think about that. So Luke Weaver's job is to teach Yadi who he is. So how does Yadi learn that? Sometimes you just have to let the pitcher go and find out what he thinks his strengths are. Fastball in.
Fly ball into center. Grichuk diving and made the catch. Keeps it a one-run lead for the Cardinals. Grichuk, an outstanding play in center field to rob Stephen Vogt. Takes the hit and RBI away. And that diving catch from number 15. A.J. Pollock back with the Diamondbacks, and Matt Moore was 1 out away from a no-hitter last night at Dodger Stadium. Strike to Tommy Pham. 1 out. He's watching that game late.
Seager that broke that up.
Yep.
Could
base
be
it into right.
Rookie of the year potentially in the National League.
Some are talking about MVP. Very interesting what the Dodgers did. They traded A.J. Ellis, who is a backup catcher, primarily the catcher for Clayton Kershaw. And he goes to the Phillies. Carlos Ruiz comes back the other way to Los Angeles. And you say, what's the big deal? It's a backup catcher. Well, he's one of the most popular players in that clubhouse. And he's also one of the best friends of what you might say is the game's best pitcher in Clayton Kershaw if he comes back. And some didn't like it, but the general manager says it's my team. A strikeout of Tommy Pham, number 6 for Detweiler, and a pitch inside to Luke Weaver. This time of year you trade players, and always teams are trying to get better, maybe build for the future, but for teams in contention there's a fine line of, and we talked about it, you know, some teams like the teams in the 70s with the A's, they didn't get along but they won.
Right.
Other teams you just don't want to disrupt chemistry. Who knows how that will play out.
Well, chemistry is an interesting thing when it comes to catchers, and I again Ray Fosse and I chatted about this, the Jonathan Lucroy moment when he was going to be traded to a bunch of different teams. One of the things that the teams were asking is, can we ask a guy to come in, be our everyday catcher, and handle our pitching staff that he doesn't know?
Base hit into center for Weaver.
So that's a chemistry question. You've got backup catchers now switching teams late. Do they really understand the other team's their new team's pitchers? And there was a look at Ray, who by the way is famous for that play with Pete Rose during the All-Star game. Ray not in favor, by the way, of the new rule, or fairly new rule, about catchers blocking home plate. Despite that,
I shook hands with Ray, and I'm still needing a bag of ice.
But he did it with a smile on his face though, right?
Oh, man, I get it. Nice to see you.
Grew up a Cardinal fan, by the way.
Yes, he did. Tapped foul by Carpenter.
I believe Marion, Illinois, is where he grew up.
And the famous play we're talking about is Pete Rose in the All-Star game barreling into Ray Fosse and injured him. My understanding is he doesn't like to talk about that play all that much. It's one of the more famous plays ever in All-Star game history. And after shaking his hand, I'll just sidestep the subject.
He can talk about whatever he wants to talk about.
You know, Ray, we have nice things to do here in St. Louis. Let me tell you about them. 1 ball, 1 strike on Carpenter. A base hit to shallow center field on a late break by Crisp. Came around to score on a 2-run homer by Jerko. And Carpenter yanks it foul. Really, the difference in this game is the break by Crisp on that ball hit by Carpenter. That's a ball that probably should have been caught.
He was fooled by the big swing of Carpenter. Did not hit it in the sweet spot of the bat, and he took a step back and the ball dropped in front of him, and you thought, okay, what's the big deal? Well, it was a big deal after Jed Jerko hit a ball about 410 to straightaway center field over his head, and it was 2-0 St. Louis.
Pitch taken inside, and it's 2-2. The Cardinals at home in interleague play this year 0-7. They've yet to win an interleague game at home this season. But a team that's been very good in interleague play historically. Carpenter with a fly ball out to right. Valencia is back and makes the catch. Join us for Purina's Better Together Pet Adoption Days here at the ballpark September 8th and 13th. Head to the Ford Plaza prior to the game to meet the adoptable furry friends from Gateway Pet Guardians and Helping Strays. Get your tickets at Cardinals.com. 2 outs, and here is Jed Jerko. 2-run homer, number 22 back in the first, and also lined out. Rick, I was doing some numbers. Cardinals dropped 2 of 3 to the Mets, finishing up the series last night. They've lost 13 home series this year. That's as many that they have lost at Busch Stadium combined the past 2 years. They just have not played well here at Busch for whatever reason. Players are asked about it daily basis. Mike Matheny is asked about it, and Mike will tell you, we've tried eliminating batting practice. We've told guys you can't be in the clubhouse until 5 o'clock. We've said maybe we'll push it back, instead of being a 2 o'clock report time, to 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I mean, they've tried everything.
Another way to turn that whole thing around is say, okay, you've got a team that is a below 500 team here as they play at home. Why in the world are they so good on the road? 38-24 on the road, 14 games over 500, and it maybe just kind of enjoy that. You still have a team that's, I think, been fun with the offense, the power, but at times incredibly frustrating because the wins have not really come in bunches. They're not sustained.
2-2, hit to short, force play at second, and Muncy at the bag. Cardinals strand a runner. We are through 5, and the Cardinals on top by a run. The Cardinals will wear tomorrow. It'll be a throwback. They wore those in 1927 as we celebrate the Hall of Fame weekend. Joe Torre, Chris Carpenter, those two will make speeches. Family members of Sam Braden and Terry Moore will be here as a part of their acceptance into the Cardinals Hall of Fame. It starts at 2. Toyota Cardinals live at 5:30. A's and Cardinals at 6. We'll have both Joe Torre and Chris Carpenter live in the booth tomorrow during the Cardinals and the A's game number 2. Tony La Russa, by the way, will be signing autographs around 11 o'clock tomorrow over at the Hall of Fame, so make a day of it.
Such a fun thing and a great place to go visit too. We mentioned many times the Hall of Fame itself. Great photos as well as memorabilia there. A lot of terrific photos. Got a good game here. Cardinals leading 2-1, and this is as much of a pitcher's duel as we've seen in a long time. Just 8 hits in this game. Detweiler settled down after giving up those 2 early runs. And what you wonder about with Luke Weaver as he's out for the 6th inning is how will he handle his pitch count the rest of the way. He's at 82.
Chris Davis at the plate to lead it off, and a breaking ball taken for a strike. Davis has grounded out to third and also called out on strikes. 7 strikeouts. 5 of the 7 have been looking. And the 0-1.
Slider away, cutter away. So what is Davis looking for? Fastball in. That's what he got. Again, it makes sense. Changing eye level, changing in and out. I'd be looking for a changeup right here. I probably couldn't hit it, especially since it's going to be a curveball.
The 2-1. Cardinals will need to go 12-5 the rest of the way at home to finish the season above 500.
That's doable.
Yep. 2-2. Hit out of play.
Dan, I was looking ahead at some of those games that the Cardinals will have at home. Milwaukee Brewers for 4. The 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th of September. The Cubs as well in that series. And then Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, the final homestand. Not many home games left, so if you don't have your tickets yet, Cardinals.com.
Grounder left side. Peralta up. And the stretch by Moss stays on the bag. Nicely done on both ends. Here's Yonder Alonso, 1 for 2 with a solo homer. We saw that picture of the uniform the Cardinals will wear tomorrow. 1926 home uniform. Did not have the birds on the bat. Last home uniform for the Cardinals with no bird of any kind on the front. Only the road uniform had the bird on the bat that year, as the play is made by Carpenter. So they go with 1927, and it showed, as you saw as we were looking at the photos and the pictures and the video of that jersey, it showed that they won with the 1926 championship logo on the front. The 26 jersey actually was totally blank on the front, so that's the significance of wearing the 27 uniform tomorrow.
I love the throwback jerseys. I'm not sure you want to see them every night, but every once in a while, why not? As long as they fit properly.
Who are you, Chris Sale?
I knew you were tracking me.
There's Sale's former teammate Zach Duke getting loose in the pen. Here's the 0-1 pitch. Jammed him.
Wow.
Well, that ball just exploded in on Healy's hands.
This is deep in the kitchen. This is rattling the pots and pans in the cupboard.
Healy is 1 for 2. Luke Weaver's allowed 4 hits tonight. And the 0-2 pitch. Get the feeling, Rick, that with 93 pitches on the night, even though his spot is not due up for a while, they probably would get Weaver out of this game.
I think it'd be a good idea, although I will say I've been impressed with his stamina at the high pitch counts. He is not losing anything as far as I'm concerned. The ball's still exploding. His command's still good, but I do think it'd be a good idea to get him out after 6. Give him a good experience. First home start. The way the game is now, specialized in the bullpen. You go 6 innings, give up 1 run. That's a good day's work for a starter.
No balls, 2 strikes on Healy. His base hit was to center, also grounded out to short. Breaks his bat. Slowly hit left side. Cut off by Peralta, and the pick by Moss. Luke Weaver's through 6 in his home debut, and the Cardinals have the lead 2-1.
Say that his day is done. Yadier Molina, last pitch, he tells him calm down, gives him the changeup, the wiggle with the fingers, then wants the ball in the outside corner. That's exactly where the pitch goes. A broken bat ground ball Terrific performance by Luke Weaver.
Moss, base hit into right as he slipped out of the batter's box.
We had 3 men down there.
Moss, the second baseman, and the shortstop with the shift.
It's like dominoes.
Boom, boom, boom.
He's okay with it, though. He got a base hit.
So Moss is 2 for 3 against his former team, and it brings in Piscotty.
Moss down. First baseman down. Second baseman down.
Of concern would be the ankle that cost Moss some games. Put a lot of guys down.
Well, he was smiling at first base. I figured he was okay.
Shocked to see him talking to Yonder Alonso.
He's pretty chatty.
I don't know if there's a person in baseball he won't talk to, or in life.
Pretty good trait to have. Very likable guy.
Sure is.
Very likable.
Let's see if the Cardinals can bust out now here in the 6th against Detweiler. They have out-hit the A's 5-4. They lead 2-1.
You do learn, though, in this game who wants to talk and who doesn't. I would imagine that if Moss was playing first base and Bob Gibson had gotten a hit, it's his statue day today, and Brandon would have said, "Hey, Bob, how you doing? That was a nice hit." That might have been the last words he said to Bob Gibson. Some guys just don't like to chat on the field. Others do. Mentioned in the open, Detweiler's 2 losses against the Cardinals in other starts, and certainly having his best start here. Pitching well enough to win this game, but trailing by a run. You know, there was a time when they were going to put him in the bullpen in Washington, and he didn't want to do that. I wonder if he'll get to a point in his career where he would be okay with that. And as the Cardinals warm up, or they were warming up Zach Duke last inning, there's some starters that have turned into relievers that have extended and improved their career after that move. But he just wasn't ready for it.
The 2-1 pitch to Piscotty. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Cardinals record when hitting 4 or more home runs in a game, 8-3. Last 10 years, 32-3. They had 4 last night. Piscotty hits it out to left on the move. Davis in front of the track to make the catch. Don't miss St. Louis's biggest office party of the year. Biz Dash Thursday, September 15th at Ballpark Village. Live music, company tailgates, and more. Visit stlbizdash.com. And with 1 out, it brings in Yadier Molina. Called out on strikes. Flied out to center.
The A's are coming off a series with Cleveland where they played 3 games and they gave up 1 run in each of the 3 games. They won 2 out of 3 of them. So the A's are starting to figure some things out with their staff, and this is a new staff for them. They've had to deal with injuries. 27 disabled players, or 27 disabled list moves, I should say, some multiple times for a particular player. It is a franchise record for them.
Cardinals have had their fair share. The Mets. Yachty out to center, base hit. Moss read it the entire way. On his way to third, and it's first and third, only 1 out.
That's such a good read by Brandon Moss, and it was not that simple to read whether the second baseman may have a chance at this. How just how long that ball may stay up in the air. He's got to read it right now. Is it going to hang up? Is the second baseman going to turn the right way and make that play? He's got to decide right now. He looks, sees the ball, sees the defender, and takes off, and now has himself in much better scoring position.
So that'll be it for Detweiler, and the A's will go to their bullpen. Detweiler goes 5 1/3, the St. Louis native. The A's, they carry 1 lefty, 6 righties, including the former Cardinal John Axford.
We talked about Brandon Moss being chatty. I think he's got a new friend in Mr. Healy, the third baseman. They were just kind of yapping it up and smiling, having a good old time. See, that's a good thing about advancing bases. You can get to a new base and talk to a new guy.
New conversations.
Yeah.
A strike to Peralta. Hyundai pitch arsenal, fastball, slider, and change. Teams now are so reliant on video and scouting reports, but yet you only see the A's maybe once every 3 years. A fly ball into center.
I don't know.
Chris makes the catch, tagging up. It is Moss, and Molina stays in the rundown. The run will score. The run does score, and so it's an RBI for Peralta, number 20 this year.
And one of the things the Cardinals know is that Coco Crisp does not have a strong arm. This is a shallow fly ball to center. Moss is able to score, and Molina making sure that the play doesn't go home, draws the attention, and finally he's out. But because the run crossed the plate before the tag of Molina, the run counts, and Brandon Moss and Yadier Molina, smart base running, and again the Cardinals scouting the A's well, knowing that they can run on Coco Crisp.
So now it's up to the bullpen to get the final 9 outs in this game. Matt Bowman, 45th appearance. Marcus Semien at the plate. Double to left center. Struck out looking. So Luke Weaver here tonight. 6 strong. Strikes out 7. Gives up a run. Only 4 hits. One ball and 1 strike to Hyundai pitch arsenal here with Bowman. Fastball, the slider, and a very good changeup.
And he can get ground balls with all 3 of those pitches. Good movement on all 3 of those pitches.
The 1-1. That pitch to a right-handed hitter could make him a lot of money.
Well, he's already doing pretty well, the major league minimum, but if he continues to do what he's doing, a lot of money will take on a whole new form, won't it?
Oh yeah. It's a slider.
And then he can use his business degree from Princeton and probably make a lot more money with that and live happily ever after.
I like it. So cheery.
We've just written his life story, haven't we?
3-1 pitch. Ground ball to short. Jerko to his left, and he makes the play. What's on Tap is presented by Budweiser. It'll be game number 2 tomorrow night. Note the start time beginning at 5:30. Mike Leake is on the mound for the Cardinals. And we'll come your way at 5:30. It's our Budweiser What's on Tap. 8th place hitter Max Muncy called out on strikes and walked back in the 5th. Lined to short, backing up Jerko, and makes the play.
Little glove mishap with Jerko. What's going on there? I'm just glad he caught it the first time. Really wondered what the shortstop defense might be like when Diaz went down, but I think it's been very good with Garcia.
I think you'd have to say that the range is not quite where you'd want it, but in terms of guys that can field their position, they do just fine. This is the spot of Ryan Dole, so they'll go to a pinch hitter. Brett Eibner, and a strike. Luke Weaver, the 6th Cardinal in his home debut, with 7 or more strikeouts since 1913. Alan Bennis had the most with 10 in his home debut. I always say it, how good could he have been if he stayed healthy? Alan Bennis was one of the young and up and coming starters the Cardinals had, one of the best in the league in baseball. Couple that with Matt Morris and his age and that 1-2 punch. And the 0-2.
Matt Bowman has gone from a guy that most Cardinal fans never heard of to a guy that, okay, I hear there's a new guy on this team that is a Rule 5 guy, to a guy that you feel pretty comfortable with pitching in late inning situations. He just continues to get better and better. He's not going to be perfect every time, but I think he has shown himself very well. Mike Matheny showing more and more confidence in him, using him in close and late situations.
The 2-2. Bowman, this will be a 1-inning appearance. His spot is due up third for the Cardinals in the bottom of the 7th. From 0-2 to 3-2 on Eibner. And he lost it. 2-out walk takes us to Coco Crisp at the top of the A's lineup. Brings a tying run to the plate. Crisp has a little pop. 11 home runs this year. So 2 outs, runner at first, and a little bouncer to Bowman. Fields his position and underhands to Brandon Moss. Time to stretch. Scoreless frame by Matt Bowman. 3-1. St. Louis in this Hall of Fame weekend. National League teams in interleague play. Best winning percentage all time, and this is the Academy Sports and Outdoors leaderboard. The Cardinals 161, 151, just behind the Mets, and the Marlins behind St. Louis. New pitcher is John Axford. Pitched in St. Louis briefly. Our Chevy called to the pen, the former closer in Milwaukee, and now working out of the pen for Oakland. 56th appearance. John had a couple of years with the Rockies and picked up by Oakland this offseason. This is our Gateway Honda home run inning. Cardinals hit a home run. The Gateway Honda dealers donate $1,000 to the Make-A-Wish Foundation of Missouri. Grichuk is 0 for 2. Flied out to deep right. And he also was called out on strikes.
The Cardinal fans will remember that John Axford is one of those guys, when he's right, he's lights out. And when he's not right, it's a big struggle for him. I mean, he's a kind of an all or nothing guy out of the bullpen as far as I'm concerned. But for a couple of years, he was lights out more often than he was not.
Now 33 years of age, from Ontario. In his career, he has a .500 record, 32 and 32, but 143 saves. The Brewers, the Cardinals, the Indians, the Pirates, Rockies and now the Oakland A's as Grichuk strikes out. He was the Rolaids relief man of the year back in 2011 when he led the league in saves.
There were times where he had control issues with the Cardinals too. Just could not throw a strike. It wasn't a velocity issue, it was a command issue. And he had that with Milwaukee too. That's why he lost the closer's role initially with Milwaukee, is he just couldn't throw strikes.
Here's Tommy Pham.
Pham, by the way, sitting on 9 home runs, Dan. The Cardinals have 9 players with 10 or more home runs. Pham next in line to make it 10. The major league record is having 11 players on one team with 10 or more home runs. So that's certainly within reach for the Cardinals.
Axford, we got to know him a little bit. He's an interesting guy, an avid watcher of movies and television, fan of film. And his big night is the Oscar night. He's predicted 14 of the past 15 winners in categories he was looking at, specifically in different categories for the Oscars. So not only can he predict movies and winners, but he also can strike you out.
Double threat guy.
A high strike. Crowd tonight 40,221. 40221. Plaza Tires box tracks. And he strikes out Pham. So back-to-back Ks for John Axford. Sunday, September 11th, 30,000 fans 16 and older receive a set of 4 ceramic Cardinals coasters presented by Coca-Cola and Schnucks. Features the birds on the bat from 4 different eras. Tickets at cardinals.com/promotions. Thankfully, his son, Jamison Axford, is back and living a mostly normal childhood, as he was bit by a rattlesnake in spring training, you may recall, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I do.
Nearly died. Hazelbaker fooled, and I mean fooled, on that pitch. Yes.
That was not a good swing. That was better.
1-2 the count. His son spent 4 weeks in intensive care. He's bitten on his foot, unable to walk, then spent the better part of a year and a half in a wheelchair. Thank goodness he's going to be all right. The 1-2. Chopped foul. Cardinals with 14 pinch hit home runs this year.
And they've spread those out too. A little bit like the Cardinals' power has gone from player to player, and so many have contributed to that. The Cardinals have got a number of players with at least 1 pinch hit home run. Hazelbaker was kind of the early favorite. He has surprising power to me. He doesn't really. He's hit some home runs the other way, and it just surprises you. Just a nice, easy swing, kind of a choked up 2-strike swing, yet the ball jumps off his bat.
2-2 in the dirt.
getting the fastball here. Gear up.
Are you calling it?
No, I'm just saying. Yes, I'm calling it a fastball.
Uh-huh. The 3-2. Foul back.
You know, knowing it's a fastball is not enough when it's 97 at the top of the zone. You can be looking for it. You can know it's coming. It's still hard to hit it.
Inside, so good at bat by Hazelbaker. He's aboard with 2 outs. Hazelbaker a threat to steal. Cardinals up by a couple of runs. Why not? As Carpenter hits it sharply to Alonso. We played 7. Kevin Segrist coming on when we come back. Segrist finishing up his warm-up tosses. He pitched in the ball game last night, and Mike Matheny cut that appearance short. One of the few times he wasn't effective, and they wanted to make sure that he was available this weekend. So he'll come in with a 2-run lead, 3-1 in favor of St. Louis. Bowman a scoreless inning. Luke Weaver part of the story here tonight with 6 innings, 4 hits, 7 strikeouts, and 1 run allowed.
Talk about players who are important to the Cardinals. Kevin Segrist certainly one of those guys, because he owns the 8th inning. When he's right, he can be as dominating as any left-hander that we see in this league. Maybe Watson with the Pirates would be another guy like that. And of course, he has battled some health issues and battled some fatigue issues, and the ball just explodes out of his hand when he has that downward trajectory and he feels strong.
Danny Valencia walked back in inning number 5. He is lined out and grounded out. Hyundai pitch arsenal for Kevin Segrist. Breaking ball drops in there for a strike.
That's still developing, isn't it? The curveball of Segrist, downward trajectory, and that's sharp and good location as well.
And against a right-handed batter, we don't see that very often from him. Here's the 0-2 pitch. Molina sets up way outside, and the changeup is taken for a ball, and it's 1-2. Shift is on with 2 strikes. Inside, almost hit him with the fastball. That's the first fastball he's seen in this at bat. 2-2 the count.
Almost walked into that, didn't he? It was inside, but he was really leaning in and then had to do the 2-step. Which you just showed me how to do. Thank you for the demonstration.
The 2-2. Oh, caught the home plate umpire, and you're welcome. The 2-2 by Segrist. Ooh, just missed on the inside corner.
Still a close game, 3-1. Do not want walks late in games. Matt Bowman walked the pinch hitter with 2 outs in the 7th inning, and Segrist doesn't want to do that here.
Fastball and line to third for the out. Power Stats brought to you by Kubota. All-time home run leaders in A's history. Big Mac 363, Jimmy Fox, Reggie, then Jose and Bob Johnson. A trade to get Mark McGwire to St. Louis and really started the transformation of this club in many ways. Credit to ownership. $3 million coming through the turnstiles. McGwire's hitting 70 and then 65 home runs back-to-back seasons, and reinvested in the payroll. Made some big trades that paid off. Here's the 0-1. Now it's 0-2. Vogt has struck out twice in this game and then lined out with runners at first and third, and a very good play, a diving catch made by Grichuk back in the 5th. 0-2. Here's a 1-2.
I thought I read this recently. We just had Jimmy Fox, who is one of the all-time home run hitters. I just thought we'd read that somewhere, and it was in Philadelphia, where at the end of his career, he'd had this Hall of Fame career. I mean, big-time home run hitter. He decides to pitch late in his career, and he's good. He becomes a starting pitcher and continues his career with the Phillies late into the 40s. Not that easy, Dan.
Think about our colleague Rick Ankiel and that transformation to being an everyday player.
Well, this is from years of not doing it, and that's what Rick Ankiel did. Years of not hitting, and all of a sudden you've got to get back on it, and he did. That was amazing what he did. Pitching the same way. He was working on 20 years rest.
2-2.
Pretty good spot there.
I'd be open to giving Rick Ankiel one more shot if he wants to get on the mound. I've seen him throw at fantasy camp. I'd be just fine saying here's a contract if you want to give it a shot. 2-2 pitch. Popped up. Left field. Pham. 2 away. Still some spots in the upcoming fantasy camp this offseason. About a dozen spots left for the camp on January 26th through the 30th. And the Talkin' Baseball segment will feature Tim McCarver, Mike Shannon, Steve Carlton. Strike one. Cardinals trying to hold on in front of this big crowd for Luke Weaver. Here's the 0-1.
You go from fantasy day conversation to a rookie trying to get his first major league win. Maybe you really haven't made such a big leap from one to the other. I mean, it is like fantasy day for him right now. He's dreamt his whole life of being a big leaguer, closing in on perhaps his first major league victory. Got his first taste of what it means to have the Cardinal faithful cheer for you. Pretty special moment for him. More work to do.
Over 40,000 here tonight, and a 1-2 pitch to Chris Davis. Got him on the inside corner. Davis didn't like it. Scoreless inning, Kevin Segrist. Jerko leads it off when we come back.
I love going there. Been there a couple of different times and met some of their champions too. Of course, the Cardinal players have grown fond of playing chess. Gotten that from their manager.
J.B. Wendelken is the new pitcher, right-hander, big guy, and that's it out of play. Back in the first inning, our knee side drive of the game. That's Jed Jerko and a 2-run homer, and that got things started. Carpenter had singled. Jerko with home run number 22. Rex is a huge Cardinals fan, in addition to the many charitable efforts he's a part of. And last night he was here at the ballpark, got a suite. Hall of Famers were here. Numbers on Wendelken. And the Hall of Famers, all of them will be in attendance tomorrow. Sometimes it's tough to line up those schedules, but they all will be here tomorrow.
Says something, doesn't it? About what this Hall of Fame means, the Cardinals Hall of Fame and beyond means to them.
Gibby, Lou, Red, Whitey, Tony, Ozzie. One name, you know who they are. Jerko flies to center for the out. Warming up in the Cardinals pen, Seung-Hwan Oh, their closer. This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cardinals. And also coming back, this will be our 4th induction class. The previous classes will come back too. So Ted Simmons will be there, Jim Edmonds. Moss grounds it left side, 2 outs.
You gotta dress Jimmy up for that.
Red jacket. Maybe the Ecksteins could help.
You know, I listen to you guys, you know. You entertain me tremendously. I love doing games with you, but I also love the entertainment.
Oh, it was entertaining the other night. Look at that shot. Wainwright, arm around Weaver, had his arm around Reyes. It was Wainwright who learned from Chris Carpenter and passing that on to the next generation.
You know, that's a perfect picture of something you and I were talking about before the game, that this team may be led by their young players into September and October. And I'm talking about led by performance. But they're not going to lead in terms of clubhouse understanding and how to play the game and all the nuanced things that comes from being a big leaguer. But the guy behind them will lead them that way. But I think those guys in front may be leading as far as performance is concerned, and you may say that about the hitters too. Stephen Piscotty's 25, Grichuk's 25. This team is really going to succeed if their young players succeed.
Here's Yadier Molina, 1 for 3 on the night. A base hit to center, and then stayed in a rundown on a short fly to center field that allowed Brandon Moss to tag up from third, and a ball hit by Peralta. 2 little things that have happened in this game, both involving Coco Crisp. One, he broke back on a base hit by Carpenter to start this game. Ball that probably should have been caught. That led to a 2-run homer. And then it was Brandon Moss on a base hit to center, reading it perfectly off the bat of Molina to go to third. If he doesn't read that properly, the Cardinals don't score that run.
You love to talk about the little things. You bring that up a lot, and the little things become big things, especially in a close ball game. And when we say little, we're saying it with air quotes around it, because the point is, if Moss doesn't make it to third, if Moss doesn't make it to third, then it's a 2-1 game.
Right.
If Chris catches that ball and reads it better off the bat, but that's still a base.
Great jump by Piscotty. No throw.
Caught everybody napping there. How about yelling step off right about now? Somebody's got to yell step off. That's an infielder's responsibility. Step off, scream it.
Only the 29th stolen base for the Cardinals this year. Piscotty with 6. That's the team lead. Long with 5. Hazelbaker with 5. The 2-1 pitch to Yadier Molina. 2-2.
And maybe another little thing here. Steven Piscotty taking that extra base. If Yadi can come through with runners in scoring position, the Cardinals have done a lot of those things right in this game, but not over yet.
The 2-2. Molina chops it left side, gloved by the third baseman Healy, and he makes the play. We head to the 9th. Seung-Hwan Oh, a chance to close it out when we come back. Quaver 3 outs away if Seung-Hwan Oh can close this out from picking up his first ever major league win. It's our Chevy call to the pen. Oh is in. And the first hitter he'll face is Yonder Alonso, who homered a solo shot back in the 2nd.
Talking about rookies of the year and the voting that will take place for the National League. Seung-Hwan Oh has got to get a lot of votes. He has been very, very good. And of course, he's an old rookie, but a rookie nonetheless.
That's the rules. Like it or not,
we don't make
a rookie.
We just abide by them.
First pitch by O. And it's taken inside. Alonso hitting .251. Lines it towards short and a base hit. Tying run will come to the plate.
Most
so
comfortable
2 for 4 on the night.
Yeah, he's clearly the most comfortable hitter at the plate tonight for Oakland.
First hit for the A's since back in the 4th.
Alonso homered in the 2nd. Just missed a big fly in the 4th inning. Got under it a bit. And now another base hit.
Here's Healy, who has 6 home runs on the year. Grounded to short, grounded to third. Also a base hit to center. Strike 1.
O has been remarkably consistent. He hasn't been perfect. He's had a couple of bad games, but for the most part, he throws strikes. You don't see him very often have a bad day with his slider. You know, you don't see that being sloppy very often.
Double play ball. Out at second, the turn. Oh, and at first it's a double play. The night for Luke Weaver. 6 innings, 4 hits allowed, 1 run, the home run by Alonso, and he strikes out 7. The Cardinals 1 out away from the win and 1 out away from his first major league win. Weaver's our Budweiser player of the game. Look at his line and 95 pitches tonight. Marcus Semien, 2 balls and no strikes. The 2-0. Cardinals looking at win number 68. 2 strikes away. The 2-1 pitch. Fly ball lifted out to center. This should do it. Grichuk is there. The Cardinals take game 1 of the series 3-1. and the first ever Major League victory for Luke Weaver.
Well, congratulations to Luke Weaver. The Cardinals pick up game 1 of this series. The home run early by Jed Jerko, the difference, a 2-run shot. Cardinals have now homered in 15 straight games.
So the youngster Luke Weaver picks up his first ever Major League win, and those youngsters love it here at the ballpark. 3-1 the final. Post-game show is next.